why do you just get to tell me what to do? And I was like, I am your father and you are my child. And I
drive a Dodge Stratus.
Fucking A.
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with a name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take.
All right, Matt, we got another When Equals Now right now coming at you live via satellite. So what's going on in your neck of the woods, Matt? I know you got something you want to get off your chest here.
Yeah, man, I'm reading this good book. I know you want to go ahead and clap for me because I'm reading a book. I know you're proud of me.
Good for you. Good for
me. It's recommended by a friend of the show, Sam Stolper. It's called The Understory. It's great. But there's a line in it that really caught my attention. And I'm not going to get it exactly right. But the idea is that one of the great mistakes or pitfalls of humanity and human thought is that we mistake consensus for truth. That we're actually more interested in what everybody around us thinks or more apt to see that as accurate than to feel that the actual truth is accurate.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And so I was struck by that line and I posed the question to my wife and she had an interesting answer, but I'm interested to hear yours. What parenting consensus is there out there right now that we mistake for truth? Like what are some things that we all are just taking as gospel about parenting that are maybe bullshit, but everybody's doing it, so we think it's right?
Maybe give me a second to think. Why don't you tell me what your wife said? Because I don't want to get into social media all over again. Because that's we kind of hit that every third episode.
Beat that to death. Yeah.
But basically, that is. When you see something that let's say gentle parenting, which really means just being empathetically there for your child, but has been kind of annexed by the super aggro passive parents who are like, or actually the opposite of aggro, super intense passive parents that are just like anything goes, like you need to let them find their true self and this and that. There are these things that I think we get where the root is true, like, and then it's very hard to refute those arguments. Like their feelings matter. Well, the converse of that sounds like a villain in a movie. No, their feelings don't matter. No, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's not that their feelings don't matter. It's that not all feelings are truth, which sounds weird coming out of my mouth. They all have a very good reason in them, but just because they're freaking out about a lollipop having a tantrum doesn't mean that, well, we got to give that lollipop. I'm not saying that's a consensus, but there is a large percentage of people who would be like, well, that is what they're feeling and feelings are valid and true and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I'd love to hear what your wife said and maybe I'll have
exactly that
response.
She said the exact same thing. She said, she said it more concisely because, she's her. Look, I'm me too. I'm like you and I are in the same boat in this. No, she just said, I think mistaking gentle parenting for permissive parenting is the thing that is just there. There's so much consensus around it that we see it as true. We were talking about this, my wife and I, last night, because we kind of had a rough afternoon, and we were talking about, how many parents feel like they struggle with anger and they feel like they struggle with, stress and they're kind of chaotic households. And I feel like we've had a lot of conversations with each other and with friends and with people from the previous generation, where we felt like our parents didn't quite feel that way. But I think even our parents who were like, they were not hitting us. They were telling us they loved us. They were telling us, it was a really loving household. I think there was still this sense there of like, yeah, but the grownups are the reasonable ones. So they're in charge and the kids need to follow what the parents say. And like, I think, and I think that like at least in my house, we're trying to create something that's like not quite so hierarchical as that. But the challenge of it is that like kids are totally fucking unreasonable. So you can't, like, if you're trying to like have everybody kind of like everybody's humanity and everybody's feelings and everybody's emotions and everybody's desires and needs kind of be on this equal playing field, the challenge of that is the kids are ridiculous and they don't know how to run a house.
Right. And if they don't learn some level of, life can be tough, AKA, I remember I wanted Teva sandals one time when they became cool, and my parents didn't like have the money for them, or I already had sandals, so they're not going to buy me Tevas. But everybody cool had Tevas.
Yeah.
And they were just like, that's just not happening. And I remember crying and throwing a fit. And I don't usually do that. Usually I was the peacemaker. But I remember I was like, I'm gonna fucking go for this one. I'm gonna lose it in the back of the minivan. I started hysterically crying, but like those sorts of things are needed in life. That's the authoritative. You need to have those firm boundaries, whatever they are. And that can be really hard. I mean, I think that's something Bez said when he was on. He's like, well, if you hold that line, like he only had a child that was, I think, a year old or 18 months or something.
Yeah, she's about 2.
Yes. Yeah. So then what happens is, as the child gets older, what becomes your relationship with discipline, rules, consequences? Because holding those lines are like super important for the ongoing knowledge of how the world works.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that when my oldest daughter really challenges me, I have so much trouble figuring out like the right way to talk about it. Cause she'll say things like, you don't get to tell me what to do. Or the other day she like wouldn't do something. She like, we went on a trip and she always was sleeping in the same room as somebody else. And we were all together all the time. Then we came back and our dog's not back yet. Her dog's somewhere else. She usually sleeps with the dog. So she doesn't want to be in a room by herself. And I was like, baby, you got to like, I'll come back and check on you every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, but you got to be in your room. And she's like, I'm not doing it. She's like, I'm just going to come with you. And it was a big blow up. And I was like, baby, I didn't quite say you're going to ruin my fucking life, but I was like, all day long, I take care of you and your sister. I get a couple of hours to do the things I need to do. And she's like, why can't I just be with you? And I'm like, I'm going to be out in the garage, working out, watching a movie that would traumatize you for the rest of your existence. And she just kind of was like, and so finally I said, well, if you can't go to sleep by yourself, well, then you can't do all these other things by yourself. You can't walk across the street to see our neighbor that you like by yourself. You can't go outside by yourself. If you can't be by yourself. And then she was like, she basically said, that's punishment. And you said you'd never punish me. And I was like, no, that's consequences. If you can't be, and she's like, what's the difference between punishment and consequences? Why do you just get to tell me what to do? And eventually I was like, I am your father and you are my child. And I
drive a Dodge Stratus.
Fucking A. It was basically like I was Will Ferrell in that stupid fucking, oh God, that skit's so good. Yeah. And I just like was at a loss for how to talk about this idea of like, yes, I do respect your humanity and your needs. And I do want you to feel like an equal part of this household. And like, we value who you are as much as we value ourselves, but you're fucking 6. You don't know what you're talking about. And you're going to ruin my life. But I don't know how to talk about it.
I got 2 things for you. And I'm going to use one of your things you've told me back at you, and then another one that I've thought of. But basically, one is the best thing you can do in a situation like that is make yourself calm, right?
Yeah.
When you were saying it, I was getting all fired up with you.
That ship sailed so long ago. No, I was so beyond calm.
I was getting so fired up with you just now that I was like, oh yeah, Matt, yeah, tell her. And then I'm like, wait a minute, he's looking for advice here and help. Let me step out. And I kind of like tuned out for a minute, and then I was like, wow, he sounds really intense talking to a 6-year-old. That's what. So 1, removing the energy, but then 2. The biggest frustrations for me have come when I try to use conversation and logic with a highly verbal young child.
Yeah. God,
your daughter is 6. She's super fucking smart and can talk about really advanced topics, but logic isn't going to get it done. And I've said it before on previous episodes. I really think it's like a Pavlovian dog sort of thing where treat, no treat. Reward, no reward. Stimuli, no stimuli. It's just like, because no one's like, we're not listening, they're not listening. No one's listening when the argument's going back and forth. I mean, even when you're in a big argument with your partner, argument going back and forth, it's getting heated. When has anyone who's getting toasty, hey, no, but you said this. Oh, no, I didn't, because I actually did this. Oh, you did. You know what? You're right. I did say that. No, that never happens. When it's getting intense, the empathy and rationalization flies out the door. So it's like chilling, but then also sometimes it's just like, I kind of hate this. And this is going to be part of that consensus thing. Consensus with this feels cringy in modern parenting. But it's just like, you fucking lock the door and throw away the key. And here's what I mean. If they're like, no, I'm not, I'm getting out of this room, I will just sit on the inside of their door and just be chill as fuck. But it's like, yo, straight up, you can't get out. You're locked in here with me because this is what's happening now. And if I can stay calm and chill and be like, and this is where you need to have like infinite time. But it's like, okay, I guess I'm not watching that show with my partner because I'm going to teach my child a lesson tonight. But if I can stay calm, sit in there and it's like, oh, sorry, hon. No, we're staying in here. They'll just fucking lose it. But it's like, they just know that like, that's a wall. It's logic. It's just so that just boils your blood, man.
It does. Yeah. How logical it is. Yeah. I mean, the real like fucking pickle I was in was what she was asking me to do was to stay in the room with her. And I was like, no, I just got to get out of here. All I need, like, it was like 9:30 p.m. and I had 3 hours of shit to do. And I was just like, you got to let me leave. She did say, I was thinking about this when you're talking about how unproductive it is when the temperature gets turned up. You notice how sometimes kids will just say the smartest shit. I said something else and I don't even remember what it was. It was something like dumb and kind of tangential to the argument. And I was like, and we didn't even like finish dinner until 7. And she's like, actually it was 6:53. And I was like, why are you arguing with me about everything I say? And she just goes, because I want you to know how mad I am at you. I was like, wow, that's exactly what's happening. I mean, that's exactly what's happening.
Great self-awareness. And then also
great self-awareness.
They know all the little daggers and shivs and where to stick them. Oh my God. Like they've identified that like things like, but I just love you and I just want you to stay here.
I know. She said that shit.
And all the social media stuff pops in your head and it's like, oh, you must not break the bond. You will traumatize them forever. And it's like, shut up, social media on the corner of my ear. It's like, no, you need to stay. It's like, but I'll do anything. And it's like, oh my God. Like, it's fucking impossible.
Yeah. I don't know what the best line of the night was. She basically was telling me that she should be on equal footing with me because she didn't need me. And I was like, baby, I drive you everywhere. Like you live in this house that I pay for. Like the only food you ever eat is food that mama prepares and buys at the store with money that we make. And she just goes, she's like, well, then how come I have that jar of coins? And I was just like, baby, that'd buy you a Coke. I was like, oh God, this is the worst. Oh man, I really fucking botched it.
See, but think about it. That is a 6-year-old making 6-year-old arguments. The arguments, you'll never win that.
I know. She's like, I just need me and my jar of coins. So we'll be fine out there. Yeah. You'll never win that. And like,
that's why it's just like, funny. Hey babe, I'm leaving. You walk out the door. If she follows you out, it's a, running back drills. You just pick them up. Okay. Put you back. No, you got to stay in. And it's just a back and forth until they lose energy and realize the key is if you can stay calm, that's a win. Whereas I feel like if sometimes we feel that consensus that isn't even there. If everyone saw me taking my screaming child who's just begging for me for one more minute with them, but I've made a plan to put them to bed at this time, I'm just going to walk them back in the room. That's correct. That's the authoritative thing. But I think it feels cruel.
Yeah. It feels cruel. It feels cruel to make your kid upset. And the other thing that you said that is really smart, I was talking about how I I struggle to articulate what I feel like is ultimately a really kind of squishy line between like, I'm your father, you need to do what I say, but also you are a full human and valued that way in this house. But the times when I struggle to really articulate that is when I'm angry and when she's angry. And when we're not, when we're just going along the way we do most of the time, it doesn't need to be articulated because she does understand that. She does the things I ask her to generally. So it's like that line only gets impossible for me to draw when we're pissed. And the first and only thing that can happen is to get less pissed.
Right. Try to be calm. But then also I would say throw using logic out the window because you have so much more heavy hitting. What's the word? You have so much, you're a heavyweight. You went to college. Yeah. You've lived in the world for many, many years. You will always win.
Shit.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas something that you've also told me that I use all the time now is just call out the dynamic. So sometimes when this is happening, if they say, I don't need you or this or that, it's just like, look, this is getting really frustrating for me. And I'm doing my best here. And why do I want you to, why do I need to leave? And they'll say, I don't know. And it's like, so I've trained them almost like Pavlovian dog to almost repeat after me. Why do I care about this? Why am I doing this? To make you feel bad? And they're like, because you love us. Why?
Yeah.
Because you want us to get a good night's sleep. Why? Because when we sleep 4 across, we kick the shit out of each other all night and nobody gets good sleep. It's like, okay. And so we get that. But why do we need to sleep? Because we want to have a fun day at camp tomorrow. They become part of it. Because I think sometimes it really does feel like we're being cruel to them. And it's like, why am I doing this? Why am I saying no lollipop before dinner? Because you care about us? But what does that mean? Because lollipop will spoil our appetite or something? Why does that matter? Because we need to eat the good food for good energy. Why does that matter? To grow a lot, to be fast at school tomorrow. So they become part of it. It also takes the energy out. Otherwise, letting them lead the argument, they will just suck and then come up with sometimes brilliant end arounds that.
Dude, then when she was like, so what's the difference between consequences and punishment? I was like, fuck you. That's too good a question. I can't answer that right now. It's like, God damn it. Yeah, great point. And the other thing that exercise does is it kind of, when you get in that high conflict situation, that the point of it just becomes winning. And you're trying to take it back into okay, what's the conflict about? What's the point of this boundary in the first place? Let's get back to what are we actually talking about here? Not, I want you to do it my way. No, I want you to do it my way, which is where you kind of end up. But yeah, I think that that is it's tricky. I think that we are this generation of parents is kind of trying to take it another step beyond just you don't hit your kids and all the way to you really respect your kids' full humanity.
Right. But we've swung so far that has kind of consensus wise has come to mean your kid should never feel sadness.
Yeah. Or they get to make the rules. And it's yeah. And then
it feels archaic to kind of say, no, your kid's not being happy all the time. Your kid's being not wanting to brush their teeth and then putting up a fight and then being kind of mad at you is sometimes part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
For a lot of kids, there are some kids that just go with the flow. And it's like, if you've only had one kid and you're listening to this, what do you mean? Just have another kid see what happens, Larry.
See what happens. Do you see what happens, Larry?
When you fuck a stranger in the ass.
Have you ever watched it on TV? Have you ever watched that on TV?
No.
Do you see what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps? Do you see what happens, Larry? He says it over and over. When you find a stranger in the Alps. All right. Well, thanks for talking me through it, Maxie. I also appreciate that before you calmly gave me good advice, you got pissed off with me because that feels good too. I mean, that's.
I was like, there's no solution here. It's like,
what the fuck? Yeah.
This episode of Milkless is brought to you by Violet Archer in the case of the Purple Martin. Thank you. Bye.